I have
Mauna Kea.
68. I have 68, but rainy.
Oh,
Okay, 68, but
Yeah.
rainy.
That's
Ugh.
not bad.
And Teri, you've got?
Oh, I'm here in Honolulu. It's 81
Okay.
degrees, I think. But what I was saying is on the news, they said they reported 14 degrees on Mauna Kea, which is the volcano mountain.
Okay.
Here.
It does snow in Hawaii. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Welcome, everyone. We'll get started in just another minute.
Great.
David, I'm getting a message here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yep.
Yeah, I'm getting a message here from someone who's trying to get in that it's not under the agenda. What does he say? Not under agenda, is not on the page anymore. Not sure what's up with that. Maybe you can let the host know it's not on the main agenda page
Yeah,
anymore.
that's I can't help you with that. I mean, it's that's through the website.
Oh,
So I mean,
okay.
there's no one in the waiting room right now, so I'm not sure they want to look back. I mean, you know, I think there was a link if they go on that page if they're having trouble logging on. But yeah,
Okay.
we have no one waiting in the waiting room at this point, and everyone else is getting in. She may need to click at the bottom of the page of the agenda. I think there might be
Okay.
a link that opens up.
Try
Yeah.
refresh. Try refresh or something.
Or look at the bottom of the page of the agenda and see if there's something else to click that will bring up the sessions. Okay, and I think there may be others straggling in, but we can get started. So I'd like to welcome to the ACCE 2022 Hawaii Catholic Schools Annual Conference virtually. I'm David Kenny, the head of school of St. Anthony's School on Maui, and I'm your moderator for session 406. There is no going back, how Catholic schools are using lessons from the COVID years to grow through hybrid learning, with Rob Birdsell, Tom Burnford, and Teri Pinney. Rob Birdsell is president of Catholic Virtual, the country's leading online learning solutions organization, partnering with Catholic schools to create an online strategy. He is also founder of Amerigo Education, as well as executive director of the Institute for Leadership and Entrepreneurship in Education, a professional community for Catholic school leaders. Tom Burnford is the executive vice president for Catholic Virtual. While Dr. Burnford consults and makes presentations in the US and internationally, and also works on policy development, crisis response, school system strategic planning, and marketing. Teri Pinney returned to teaching for India River State College and University of Hawaii's Kapiolani Community College. She has been a lead evaluator for accreditation, school visits, and authorized quality assessment reviews. This session will be for about 1 hour. You can enter your questions through the chat option, and questions will be answered if time allows. So let's now begin with prayer. Let's put ourselves in the presence of our Lord. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. God of love and of life, thank you for the abundant blessings you have bestowed on us all. Help us to look deep within ourselves and discover the gifts you have blessed us with, and to receive your gifts with great joy. We thank you for the gift of our presenters today. May you guide and inspire them to share their knowledge with us as we open our eyes, ears, and hearts to what we're about to learn, and may it help us become better educators for our students each day. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen. So now let us warmly welcome Rob Birdsell, Tom Burnford, and Teri Pinney. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone. I guess I'll get started because I'm going to step back and let the Rob and Tom show take over a little bit. But hello, everyone. Aloha. Peheoi, I'm from Hawaii. I lived in Florida as a school evaluator, administrator for 20 something years, but I got back. I'm an old veteran educator. I was anti distance learning. I put a front and I said, no way, there's no way we're going to bring that into the classroom, only to realize that there's tremendous advantages, to it. So I'm excited that I asked Rob and Tom to speak to the Hawaii Catholic schools individuals here and to be available to answer any questions. And so I want to just leave it at that and just turn it over to them. But thank you, Rob and Tom, for your time.
Great. Well, thank you, Teri, and great to see many of you and many of your names on the screen. I do wish we were in person. As we were saying, as you were joining, it's about 15 degrees here in Chicago, and we've had snow for 5 straight days. And it would be lovely to be in Hawaii. I was there last year for 2 short, so hopefully next year we can be doing this in person. Tom, welcome.
Absolutely. Good to see you again, Rob. And I too wish I was in Hawaii. As I mentioned earlier, I'm wearing a short sleeve shirt, even though it's 37 degrees outside. And to be honest, freezing rain is coming down and predicted. But it's great to be here in spirit, in the warmth. And also, it's always warm when one is working with and learning with and from Catholic school teachers. So happy Catholic Schools Week, everybody.
Right.
Thank you for everything you do in Catholic schools, and we're looking forward to spending this hour with you.
Great. And to kick us off, Tom and I, when we do these, we prefer them to be engaging. So please use the chat. We will be pulling any questions, comments into the conversation. If we were in person, I would imagine us sitting around a big table or a small room where we could be having a conversation. So we'd like it to be as conversational as possible. You do not want to have us talk to you for an hour. Trust me.
Nope.
So this session, we're going to talk about 6 lessons that we think Catholic schools are learning from the past couple of years. Tom and I have had the privilege of working with hundreds of schools around the country. We're talking to them all the time. Actually just got off with a school in California. And so we're able to see what is happening, what is working, some interesting ideas. We've actually written a white paper that you could find in the next couple of weeks at our LinkedIn page that goes into much more detail. But today we're going to give you an overview. And this quote that you see there is no going back, is actually from Education Week. A longtime educator was interviewed and he simply said, we've learned too much and there is no going back. The image here is of what my classroom looked like in about 1978 at St. Eugene's Grade School in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And it's changing rapidly. The online learning and hybrid learning, blended learning was here 3-4 years ago, but the pandemic simply accelerated into, I would say 10 years where what it would have taken had we not been there.
Mm-hmm.
Tom.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's in some sense we were forced to move and to move quickly. And, Rob, I've got a friend who works as a hospital administrator. And he said for years and years, hospitals were talking about telehealth, where doctors could talk to people online. Mm-hmm. And they jumped forwards 10 years because of the pandemic, because they were forced to. And it was a blessing in disguise. So in a similar way, as you're saying, online education has come. It's moved fast because of this pandemic.
It's interesting you mentioned telehealth. My daughter 2 days ago had pink eye, and they called our primary care physician, and they said, "Do you want to come in, or do you want to do telemedicine?" My wife's like, "Well, duh, telemedicine. Yeah, I don't want to drive in the cold and park and wait." And they're done in 15 minutes. Yep. The same thing is happening, Tom, with schools. I was out at the school yesterday in Syracuse, New York, and the principal had on a sweatshirt and she was pretty casual. She goes, "Let me just start. We're having a virtual day today. So I don't normally dress like this, and that's my couch." I said, I kind of figured that you weren't at school. Yeah. And I said, "Well, talk to me about that." She said, a number of students and families really like having the option. So they have 2 virtual days a month. And it's not just 8 hours of Zoom. We know that's not effective, But there is time to check in with teachers. They have office hours, they're doing remote work, but the families and especially the students like that option. And so Tom, that I find fascinating as we see schools beginning to adapt and take the lessons learned from the past 2 years. So let's jump into what we see as 6 lessons for all of you to consider. These are not perfect for every school. We know every school is unique. We know every community is unique, but hopefully you'll get something out of these 6 lessons. So I'll take the first one, Tom.
Sure.
When I evaluate schools, when I was running networks of schools, when I taught in schools, there's a traditional bell curve in every school. Every school I've been to, you had 20% of the teachers were just rock stars. They could carry a class, the charisma of the teacher, the passion, whatever it was, but 20% rock stars. You've got another 60% that are good. They're doing their job. They may not be getting to every kid, but they're good teachers. There's another 20% that I actually would say I wouldn't want my children in that classroom. Not for safety, but they're going to have a learning deficit. And we know if you have a bad teacher in a critical subject, it's going to take years to catch up. I know that from personal experience, me, my own daughters, as an educator, what online learning and hybrid learning can do is it can help school administrators, it can help schools have a better assurance of quality. So you go into a school and you see a wide variety of test scores. That's showing you the variety of teaching. If with online, you're able to have a better evaluation of teachers, you're able to see what's happening more readily, you're getting access to the classroom. So, 10, 15 years ago, when I was running the Cristo Rey network of schools, we told principals 80% of your time should be in classrooms, coaching and monitoring teachers. In a hybrid model, you can be doing that from your computer. You can be watching the classrooms. Tom, I'll turn it to you to continue.
Right. No, I mean, I think that's important, Rob. It's a hard reality, though,
Yeah.
to talk about the fact that not all teachers are great. I mean, we love our Catholic school teachers. We know they are the essence and the heart of our Catholic schools and interact with our students. But we do also know that it's very difficult work, and not everybody is suited to that work. And there is a difference in quality of teachers. What we're talking about is how do we help everybody move forward and grow? Because even though teachers are at the heart of our schools, ultimately it's all about the students and the students learning. And that depends upon the skills and the quality of the teachers, in addition to their dedication. And again, it's great to be here, Rob, today, talking with teachers in Hawaii. And so the second one we want to look at, Rob, is this idea of teacher engagement and satisfaction. And this has been a tough couple of years for teachers. And thank you again to all the teachers who have been working, showing up to school during the pandemic, indeed before, but it's been particularly hard during the pandemic to teach in person, particularly with COVID and some risks there, though we know schools have been safe. I worked in a school myself during the first year of the pandemic as the interim president of a high school. And it was tough for the teachers to show up and work with the kids every day because they may have had family members who were sick or at risk. And they did anyway because of that commitment. And Rob, what we want is we want teachers who love their work, who are fully engaged and have a high level of satisfaction. And here's what I'm going to ask. Okay, we got chat, right? We got teachers. Everybody go to the chat and put in one thing that you love about teaching, whatever it is. Just put it in right now, okay? We're going to see if the chat function works. And I'm going to monitor it. And then okay, there you go. Students, put everything in here, right? There you go. Keeps you young. There you go. That's excellent. So I'm going to keep talking, then I'm going to come back to this. But we believe that there are a number of things that a teacher does. They communicate information, they do assessments, they witness to students, they care for the students, they help students learn individually, as in differentiated learning. They don't just share information, but they help students understand and then be able to act as part of learning. So many different aspects. The question is, to what extent can online or technology help a teacher focus on the bits of the teaching profession that they love the most? I'm going to do an example. So we're going to go back here. Okay, look at this. We got, what do you love about teaching? The students, dedication, the subject, interesting, the subject there, students, loyalty, seeing growth in the students. That's an excellent one. Student engagement, engaging the students in a relational way, keeps you on your feet. That's great. Relating to a younger generation, the students' reaction when they see growth and progress. Isn't that it? Isn't that rewarding when you see a student understand something? By the way, what's missing here? No one said grading.
Tom,
Right?
Oh, yeah, the power.
Now,
No one
Rob,
said
you
power.
loved grading, didn't you? Isn't
oh
that,
my gosh.
is that
The
why you
reason-
got into teaching?
the reason I left teaching was grading 100 papers a week. But Tom, what if through the use of technology, teachers could spend more time with what they're saying, with students, with
Exactly.
building relationships, being an accompaniment? That is the exciting part of technology. It's not here yet, but it's coming. Artificial intelligence will help teachers grade papers. Imagine that. You could assign the paper, you could teach them how to write, you can teach them, the compository skills, but then a computer can do the grading. It's also going to potentially be more authentic, and it's also going to allow the teachers to spend more time with students. Also curriculum, that I spent hours and hours developing my curriculum, developing what I was going to be teaching, writing my assessments, grading the assessments. That wasn't why I got into teaching, but that was a bulk of my energy. Tom, yesterday we did a podcast with a great educational policy expert, Rick Hess, and he was talking about this, that his estimate is that close to 40% of a teacher's day is doing stuff that could be done through the use of technology. That is where we need to go with this. We're not going to change the delivery. I mean, it is critical for a teacher to be with a student, but could we use technology to take that other stuff off their plate? And I think this would also help Tom with the burnout that we're seeing. 550,000 teachers have left the profession in the past 2 years.
Yeah.
And I bet you half those teachers would have stayed if they didn't have all this other stuff.
Yep. But Rob, let me just pick up on one point. Yes, the delivery though has the potential to change somewhat, right? Because if you think about it, the ultimate technology in teaching was a textbook, right?
Yep.
And the textbook enabled the student to learn on their own to some degree, for information, to get information and knowledge to get into the student. However, the teacher had to fill in the gaps and take that information and turn it into understanding and then into action, so that what the student knows, they can know, understand, and do, right? The different pathway of education. In the same way, I do think some of the curriculum can be delivered online in a new modality, freeing up the teacher to spend more time helping the students understand and working with differentiated instructions for students, just like what you're saying. But it's an interesting analogy to think about how we have textbooks were a new technology in some sense, but now we have so much more with the advent of online curricula. However, you have to have a teacher. Yeah, you can't do this without a teacher.
And Tom, we know that research has shown that 70% of students need engagement. That they keep just reading a textbook, they're not going to learn it. Whereas if you have an engaging online curriculum that shows and does and engages and has chats, now a student who just reading a book is not getting it. Now it's a much more interactive way for them to get it. But I think the key here for this one time, the takeaway for me is put teachers doing what our friends here said, put them with students.
Yes.
That is the key.
Exactly. That's a tremendous.
We have a question that popped up. Why don't I just go ahead and bring them up when they do arise, from Sylvia. And Sylvia is asking, what is the best amount of time should online teaching be, since students have more than one teacher, like in middle and high school? Is there a time element on
Well,
what's ideal?
let me just make a couple clarifications, and then Tom, I'll turn to you. But
Sure.
What Catholic school, especially teachers did and schools did in the pandemic, they took a brick and mortar curriculum and they put it on Zoom, and it was heroic. But that is remote learning. That is different from what Tom and I are talking about now, which is online learning. So online learning was meant to be delivered online and can be supplemented with a teacher facilitating the learning. But I just want to delineate the difference. So remote learning, nobody should be doing 6 hours of Zoom. No.
Right.
No.
It's deadly.
Yeah, I guess that needs to be clarified, because I think I went ahead and I started a discussion on remote learning is here to stay based on that Rand Corporation study. But there is a difference.
Yeah. So
like you're
it's not a curriculum that was meant to be delivered in person, put on Zoom. That was heroic and it was great, but it's not sustainable. It's not long-term. It's not effective.
Mhm.
Online learning that is designed to be taught online is very different. It's a much more engaging, very little Zoom. So in our estimation, 1 hour of live instruction a week would be ideal, but the rest, there's still a lot of work being done online that the student is doing asynchronously on their own. So I would say 2 30-minute live instruction per course is ideal. Some may want more, some may want less, but that's what our research has shown, is that 2 30-minute live instruction accompanied by a robust, engaging, asynchronous curriculum. And Tom, I'll let you add anything.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we are not talking about a completely online experience at all, because we know, particularly in Catholic schools, that students need human interaction and interaction with adults who are witnesses to the passion of the subject involved,
Mhm.
and also witnesses to faith. But that mix of 2 30-minute live sessions and then 4 or 5 hours of asynchronous work seems to work. Now, it's also, remember, in many of the best online models, there is teacher interaction on an individual basis beyond live sessions. The oversight of the work, the feedback on any particular assessments, though a lot of assessments are automatically managed. But I think that'll come up a little more as we go on as well, Rob.
And I'll just
Thank
take
you,
this quick
Sylvia,
one.
for your question.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Sylvia has another good one. Online, we have a K-12 Cognia accredited online school. Certainly the older the students, the more independent they will be. Younger grades under grade 5 need adult support, as you could imagine. A kindergarten online needs adult parental support, but as they get into 5th, 6th, 7th grade, it can be completely independent. So
Mhm.
Sylvia, we are grades K through 12. And thank you all for the comments to Tom's question, and Sylvia for your good questions. So
Yeah, keep them coming. Feel free to type in questions anytime.
Tom, let's move on here to the next piece.
Sure.
One that's important to all of us here is an increased focus on Catholic identity. And what we mean here is that, similar to freeing teachers up to focus on relationship and accompaniment with students, we can also free up our teachers to focus on the most important part of our schools, which is our Catholic identity, our evangelization, and our faith. If they're not grading papers, they can be focused on their faith. It also, we have found, can engage students in faith discussions that they may not do in person. Some students are much more engaged online. They feel more comfortable in a chat. We have a chaplain that, there's some students that may want to talk about a vocation. It's a little easier virtually.
Right.
Could be uncomfortable in person, but to have that little bit of a filter can be good. But the ability to focus more time on our identity as a Catholic school by freeing teachers up from the grading, from the assessment design, from the curriculum design, they can now accompany their students not only academically, but also in their faith formation. Tom?
Yeah, the other side of that, Rob, is when I first started looking at online learning, my initial response was, okay, so if a student is learning online, you have to beef up the Catholic identity of when they're in person, right?
Mhm.
Because they ain't going to get Catholic identity through online. And the idea came to me, it was actually a president of a high school who gave me a book called Silence, which is about about Jesuit missionaries in the 1500s going to Japan. They were Portuguese and Spanish. And, I thought about St. Francis Xavier, who of course went to China and Japan, and basically getting off a boat, walking up to Japan. And you must have imagined he's like, okay, I'm going to go preach the gospel. Oh, dang. How am I supposed to do that here? Right? Completely different language, completely different culture, different philosophical way of talking and thinking. He had no idea how to evangelize in Japan. So he had to figure it out. And in some sense, real online learning is so new in the history of the church, so new that we have to learn how to form people in faith in a virtual and online setting authentically. And I think it's a cop-out to say you can't do that. I have had some incredible conversations with our teachers at Catholic Virtual, who are most of whom have Catholic school experience, in how do you bring faith alive in a virtual session. Yes, you pray at the beginning of your virtual session in the same way that we prayed as we began this, but more, you have the ability to hear from different students. And as Rob said, there is sharing at a different level. So this is a new arena of evangelization that is opening up before us. And I believe there's true opportunities there.
Well, and Tom, St. Ignatius had the great line, have them enter through their door so that they might exit through your door. And
Yes.
a part of this is where the young people are. They're online,
Right.
They're not sitting reading St. Augustine's Confessions, on a Friday night. They're online. And so if that's where they are, let's enter through their door, as Ignatius said, so that we can pull them into our Catholic faith, and then they can exit through our door.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Let's move to the next one, Tom. Increase student outcomes. So this is one that's near and dear to me, that is so important, that we are tracking outcomes and data, and it's much easier to do in an online environment because the technology is regularly tracking it. But what I think is super exciting, Tom, is in a traditional classroom, the only constant is that the bells are going to keep ringing.
Right.
So when I was in Spanish 1 at Marquette University High School, whether I learned the grammar of that day or not, and generally not, the bell rang and I just kept falling further and further behind. And, I didn't learn Spanish. With online learning, the one constant is learning. So had I been taking Spanish online, I would have gone at a very different pace than some of my other classmates who were simply smarter than I was. But I would have learned it, and I would have had a much better experience because I would have gone at my pace.
Yes.
And, especially as we look to the future of online, there's going to be adaptive learning coming, so that it's going to see that I'm able to, okay, I'm not getting fractions. You're certainly not going to get decimals. So we got to stick in fractions for a bit longer here. Whereas Tom's already blown through fractions. He can be going to decimals and he can keep moving. So I think that will.
What are you laughing, Terry?
I think that's pretty good.
Okay.
But when we're able to focus on the student and not the class, we are going to increase student outcomes. And that gets me really dang excited, because that's what our faith is. The Catholic Church is universal church. We need to meet the people where they are, not where we want them to be, not where this class should be, but every student is a child of God. Let's meet them there. And I believe this future of online learning is going to help that.
Absolutely. I mean, Rob, you think about how the layout of the classroom has changed so much recently. Not always, but from the picture you showed at the beginning of all the desks facing in the same direction, how now a classroom design has been, and there's a lot of work been done on this, to help differentiated learning so that a group of students can work out here to either go forwards or to catch up. In an online environment, there is the ability, in some sense, for an infinite amount of differentiated learning based upon the student's need. So it's definitely can help all students move forward, if not exactly at the same pace, but to maximize growth scores for individual students and growth and outcomes. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a straight line. What we know
Exactly.
is at the end of this semester, at the end of this school year, what should a student know and be able to do? How they get there doesn't really matter. It's just that they
Right.
get there.
Yep.
And with the differentiation in an online environment, they can all have different squiggly paths. As long as we
Exactly.
know that they get there, they know and are able to do what they need to do for that course. So Tom, I'll let you talk about this one. You get pretty excited about this one.
Yeah. And I mean, and just for everybody's sake, this graphic is just a sample schedule, right? It's simply a graphic. This is not what we're proposing, but you know, for a school to have access to an online option for a class or some classes or a grade or some grades, it adds an element of flexibility. I mean, in some sense, in the simplest way, you can plug in an online class easily, quickly, and at a time that is convenient, particularly if you're talking about having most of the work done asynchronously, for example, the high school level. And so online provides an element of flexibility that many schools don't currently have, because you've got, 10, 15 classrooms, each with 25, 30 chairs in each, and one teacher looking after that class. So to be able to do a certain amount of math, or do algebra virtually, it gives some flexibility to not only the school day, but also to staffing levels, and also to how the budget is worked within the school. And we're not proposing one thing over another. What I'm saying is that it helps a school to have flexibility and to have different options, right? We also know now, I mean, just some examples, Rob, let's think of some of the examples. So we know that there are a lot of high schools where students are struggling with mental health issues. I talked to a president of a high school who has 4 students who are out for the semester because of the stresses and anxieties in their life. And those students still need an education, and they need a quality education. The Zooming into the classroom doesn't work. So an online provider can provide for those students for a semester while they get better, and they can stay enrolled in their school.
Mhm.
The other side of it is, we know that in New England, you can't find Spanish teachers, right? And so they need Spanish teachers. And there's flexibility of a solution for a number of schools to do virtual Spanish for the year, because they literally can't find or don't have access to Spanish teachers. And then as schools look at their budgets, they may have 3 or 4 students who want to learn German, or 5 or 6 students who are really interested in some AP psychology. In fact, we're working with a school in outside of Raleigh, South Carolina, where their problem in scheduling is they have so many kids doing AP science courses that they conflict, because they have all their AP science courses at a similar time, and they don't have enough, AP science teachers for the kids who want to do AP biology and AP chemistry. So they provide a virtual asynchronous option. So we just think that it's a different modality with an online option, and even just to have that option in your back pocket for a course or a particular subject. Just that flexibility in scheduling, also flexibility in staffing, particularly given teacher shortages at this time. So that's what we're talking about here.
Tom, a couple stories or anecdotes. I went to lunch with a president of a school, and we're coming back, and it's 1:30, 2 o'clock, and there are 10 guys out in the batting cage. I was like, Ken, what's going on? Are they all playing hooky, or they? And he laughed. He said, I still can't get over it, Rob. And I'm like, what? He said, well, they're taking asynchronous courses, and they prefer to take the courses at night when they're home. And during the day, they like to hang out with their friends. They missed them for a year and a half, And so they spend some of the time going to the batting cages and hanging out. And that, by the way, is the baseball coach who teaches their asynchronous course, and he's doing much of it at night.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so go ahead, Terry.
I was going to say Dallas. I don't know if Dallas can hear me, but he's on here and he has lots of stories to share regarding that and how the flexibility of the schedule, what they're doing at St. Michael with their program. I don't know, Dallas, can you hear me?
Yep, he says hi, everyone.
But you're muted, Dallas. Come on and talk. This is a
Can I be heard?
discussion.
Yep, we hear you, Dallas. Go ahead.
Oh wow. I don't know if you can see me, but that's
Yep,
okay
we
one
see
way or
you.
the other. Oh,
You're in
cool.
your, I know where you are. You're in your home office.
Right. That's right. I got my background here that I set up when we were all shut down, right? And just to kind of liven up the background. But everything that you're sharing today, I just want to share with you that it's been an amazing journey to realize the not only how online learning was a lifeline for a lot of people, including ourselves and other schools in Hawaii, by the way, during that pandemic when we weren't sure how things were going to move forward. But during that time, I really came to understand the benefit of online learning in general. And at St. Michael, we have a high school that is based upon this model, and it allows ultimate flexibility for the students. We have some students who take classes asynchronously, some students that, as Rob was mentioning earlier, have two half-hour sessions. We do have longer sessions for some of the AP courses, and some of the more, math is one of those that sometimes we have a little bit extra time with the students. But we have great success. There's a lot of flexibility. Some of the students, who were out of the country, so they live on a farm, so they get to go to work. They work with their parents. They do all those things. They're able to get their classes done. They come on campus a couple times a week to have the interaction. It allows us to create an environment where there's daily prayer. We have a chapel where we're at. The students spend time in the chapel each day, mass each week, rosary each week, all those different things that really are important in establishing solid Catholic identity at the school. And just to keep a long story short, we have our first two graduates this year.
That's great.
That not only graduated through the system, but got into the colleges of their choice, and at least one of them got scholarships to go to the college of their choice as well. So much more to share, but I will share that for now.
Yeah, I didn't mean to put you on the spot, Dallas.
Well, in Dallas, on that point, I met this young woman who was at a small to middle Catholic school, and she needed to get calculus to apply to the Rochester Institute of Technology, and her school didn't offer calc. So she took it online asynchronously, which is amazing to me because I didn't do well even with live instruction, but she's obviously very bright. She got an A in the course, she got into RIT, and she got a full academic scholarship. She wouldn't even be able to apply if she didn't take that calc course online.
Mm-hmm.
And so the ability for schools to open up their catalogs, to offer dual credit, I know something a number of the Hawaiian schools are very excited about. Dual credit is such an interesting way compared to AP. You take the AP course, it's a whole year long, and you've got to get a 4 or 5 on the test for you to get the college credit. If you take a dual credit, if you get an A or a B, you're getting that credit.
Right.
We work with the top 100 Catholic University Marquette to offer this. So it's real Marquette professors. It's a real Marquette course. And one school I talked to, they're planning all their juniors and seniors to take 2 Marquette courses every semester. And the intention is that they'll go to college, and be second semester freshmen, if not sophomores, and save their families a fortune. And the families could not be happier. It's not for everybody. They're only allowing their top 50 students into the program. But for those kids, they think they can do this. And imagine how much savings that could be. And also your college application. If you can show you're getting A and B work at a school like Marquette, you're going to have a much more interesting college application than otherwise.
I just want to share one more anecdote before I kind of mute again. That really stood out to me for our school is a lot of the schools here or in our area, we have a lot of students that are military. And they sometimes leave right after, middle school or grade school. They leave because their parents are stationed elsewhere. And what we have been able to do through this online learning platform is we've been able to offer, and because the parents love our school, we have them sign up for online learning through our school. And when we had the live sessions, guess what? The students that have moved get to, continue their relationships with their friends here and
Right.
see them in a classroom setting. And we have students all throughout the continental US. And we had even a student in Saipan and in Okinawa. So,
Wow.
to be able to have that interconnectivity and to allow students to continue to be a part of our school, even if it's in a small way, has been great. But I don't want to go into too much more. I'll just leave it at that.
Good, Dallas.
No. Yeah, thank you, Dallas. As people were joining, Dallas, we talked about my trip out there, where I'm probably the only person who ever went to Hawaii and stayed less than 24 hours.
Unbelievable how you could handle the time change difference. But anyway.
Yep. Alrighty, our final, and thank you all for your continued support and engagement in this conversation. But our final offering here is a school can expand their course catalog. And I met with the school the other day. They're going to be offering every AP course now. I was encouraging some dual credit, but they're very AP centric. They now are going to offer every AP, even if they have 2-3 kids in an AP course, because they will be joined with students from around the country to join those. And as Tom was saying earlier, things like Mandarin, cybersecurity, coding, you might have 5 students. You're not going to hire a teacher for 5 students, but if you join other Catholic schools around the country as part of this exciting movement, you can expand your catalog, expand your offerings. And Tom, I'll turn to you.
Yeah, and I mean, to Dallas's point, expand, increase our reach. This is what online options do, right? They can help provide an education that can cater to an individual student's needs or wants by being able to provide electives that they want. It can also bring in new courses or new subjects that the school wouldn't ever be able to offer. So in some sense, it can make a school bigger, and it can also include students who have left or are out sick. We even have one student who unfortunately had some discipline issues and was not able to come back in their senior year onto campus, but is able to graduate from the school by using an online option. So I think it's a way to balance, or it's a way to make Catholic schools a little bigger. The key, of course, is that we are people of faith who require the transmission of faith through relationships, ultimately through the Eucharist and sacraments with a big S, but also through the relationships that students have with teachers. As I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of work to be done on how do teachers and students relate in online learning settings, but we still need that core focus of interpersonal relationships. But there's plenty of room for expansion and for growth, and to welcome into our school communities maybe more students who traditionally haven't been able to come. I've thought about this because it's possible, and we did this at the school I was working at in Hagerstown, Maryland in last year, was to have a four-day school week. And if you have a 4-day school week permanently, if that was to be permanent, you can expand how far people are willing to drive to get to your high school, because 4 days of commuting is different from 5 days of commuting. And therefore you might be able to welcome more people in if there is a fully asynchronous day, just by way of example. So I think just this idea of making more learning accessible, it makes sense in many ways.
Tom, you want to take? So as we move into the final 10 minutes or so, some questions for you to ponder. For the group, feel free to jump into the chat, but which of the 6 benefits of hybrid learning resonated with you the most?
Mm-hmm.
Love to hear from people as they chat. Also a big one, what concerns or worries do you have about hybrid and online learning? This, I don't think people could get this one in the chat, but for your school, your community, what do you think education will look like 10 years from now?
That's a big
It's a big
question.
one.
Yep.
And what are you going to do differently as a result of this discussion? We'd love to see some chats and some feedback there. While people are pondering and thinking of what they're going to write. If you enjoyed this discussion today, Tom and I have a regular podcast where we talk about a lot of these same subjects. It's called The Next Class. You can listen to it wherever you listen to your podcast, but The Next Class 2.0, it's our second season. We've had some great guests. We've had Father Dennis Holtschneider, who runs the American Catholic Colleges and Universities Association, talking about the future of higher ed, just talking about that question. We've had school leaders, we've had foundation donors, and a lot of other people. So if you've enjoyed this, feel free to join us at the next class. And
that's with guests, Rob. That's not just you and me talking, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah.
If we've bored you today, just the two of us.
Yeah.
Bring on great
come
guests.
to the next class. Yeah.
Are there any questions or comments or issues you would like to bring before Rob and Tom? I know that you're being courteous and just holding back, but you're more than welcome to just go ahead, because I'm about to ask them a doozy. One that was, of course, that's what I'm here for. But it is a question that was posed to me by a fellow retired educator who, okay, I'll just ask you this. How do you overcome the challenge of, first of all, you know, it's not for every student. And some students struggle with, she said, feeling isolated or what have you. Or is that an issue that, you know, what do you tell educators how to overcome that student that is not motivated? Because it requires some discipline to come onto the computer and be there. And I'm sure some teachers here can tell the story about when they had an online class with their student, the student's on their bed, you know, with the pop walking by in his underwear or something like that, you know, some freaky story like that. But how do you talk to that?
Sure. And you said an important thing there, Terry, that I think are you talking about fully online students? Not supplemental. Yeah, because if a student's taking, as we've been talking, you know, a course online, they're at school and they're engaging. And so that's very different. You know, Dallas's model, they're at school, they're fully online, but they're at school, they're interacting. I mean, this one student made this incredible garden that I was just blown away by. So that model there's a lot of engagement, but for the fully online student, there's still engagement. It's different though for students. It's an online engagement, and the teachers, we spend a lot of time with our online teachers about engagement. The number one trait of an in-person teacher is still the number one trait of an online teacher. It's student engagement. Right. Everyone listening can remember their favorite teacher. That teacher got you engaged. Well, you can do the same thing online. In fact, we have an amazing story. One of our teachers was monitoring a chat room as a fully asynchronous course, and something seemed a little off with one of her students. She noticed over a couple of days they were posting some things that made them a little concerned. They reached out to the principal of the school. They brought the student in, they did some intervention, and the student was having a mental health crisis. And it was the online teacher that noticed it, not the in-person teachers. So you can, in an online environment, have a very engaging experience, and some students find it more, compatible than the in-person. And Tom, do you want to add to that before we go to this?
I was just thinking of the example of a trained online teacher who was describing to me the sense that, in some sense, in an online environment, it's less isolating for a student who may be tempted to sit at the back of the class and isolate there. Because in some sense, there's more one-on-one feedback, even if it's through an email exchange with the teacher on, assessing their work and reviewing it, and that backwards and forwards, that the student gets a chance to engage more, because it, for some students, is a safer environment than a classroom with 30 kids.
Mhm.
students in it. So yeah.
So Doug has a question here that
Right.
he's taken some online courses that were excellent through Coursera, which is an amazing platform. Are there efforts similar for high school students? And Doug, the simple answer to that is high schools and organizations working with high schools simply don't have the resources to make it free. If you're Stanford and Harvard and MIT and all the others working in that, they just have the resources and the endowments to underwrite that. A high school can't do that. Even the place like Woodside Priory that has a huge endowment and 48,000 in tuition, they couldn't just make courses free. So I am not, unless Tom, I've not heard of any Coursera like for high school.
I have not either. No.
But a good question, and that's great that you've taken some of the Coursera. They're pretty remarkable, and it's kudos to those universities doing that and making higher ed courses available to the masses, which is amazing. I will say that about 80% of the people that start Coursera courses do not complete, and some of the criticism of that and the MOOCs and things like that is they don't have the support, they don't have the resources. If it's free to have somebody monitoring, someone like Dallas who's monitoring his students' pace.
That's a key. The support of a trained teacher and someone helping the students learn online is critical.
Yeah. Whereas I don't know, Doug, your experience with Coursera, but mine is that it's all there, but there's no regular engagement. There's no emailing a teacher. There's no one say you haven't logged on in 2 weeks. The content is all there, but it's not an engaging experience that a high school student, I believe, needs. But good question, and thank you for that.
Anyone else? Does Hawaii have any unique situations with regard to distance learning, online learning?
Oh, Dallas and I we could do a whole nother session on that.
Oh,
Well, I mean,
really?
I think Dallas shared some about the presence of the military and the fact that military families might move and yet wish to belong. That highlighted for me the sense that people want to belong to their Catholic school in some sense, even if they no longer are geographically close. And I think that's a huge opportunity. And we all know the world is shrinking in one sense because people are moving so much and it's easier to travel. So, yeah.
Okay, we have a question here from Rayette. And Rayette is saying if there are any recommendations on courses for teachers to take for hybrid learning, and this also can lead to the issue about teachers who feel maybe they need more training to be an instructor.
Right, that's a really good question that I would love to have Teri follow up with you after I'd love to and Sylvia too, that we could we could talk to our chief academic officer on courses for teachers to take on hybrid learning and training. So Sylvia and Rayette, we'll put it on Teri to follow up with the two of you on that. Those are really good questions, and I'd rather get a really smart answer for you than something off the cuff on that, because it is different. And you're right, there is we spend a lot of time training our teachers. We prefer to hire teachers who have online experience, but we have a number that don't. And so we do a lot of our training and it's based off research. So we can get that for you. And Teri, we can take that offline and then you could follow up with Rayette and Sylvia.
Okay.
Rob, that brings up an interesting point though, because part of what we do know is that any student who goes to college or university will be learning online.
Right.
That's the way university and college is. To say nothing of the fact that, I go online to YouTube to learn how to replace the faucet in my shower.
Right.
And I did it and it works. It
What
no
would we
longer
do without
leaks.
YouTube? I know.
Okay, so this is the power of YouTube. But as Catholic educators and as schools, I think we have a responsibility to prepare students for lifelong learning, a part of which is going to be in an online setting. So we need teachers to learn how to teach in a hybrid setting, but we also need to give our students an experience of success, at least some success, in an online environment before they go to college. Otherwise, they're going to get to college and say, you know, my teacher's not 6 feet away from me in front. How am I supposed to learn?
But Tom, even pre-pandemic, 30% of university courses were taught online.
Yeah.
And we know that's only going north, it's not going south.
Right.
Although there is a bit of pushback for that. But, you know, my daughters at the University of Minnesota, 2 of them, they both, you know, had the option too. Certain courses you chose, you could have an online or you could be in person. So that's interesting, where students are getting the option to choose. But yes, a number of states, for you to graduate and get a diploma, you actually have to have taken an online course. States like Florida, Michigan, that was 10 years ago they passed that law.
Yeah.
So yeah, for a school to not offer any online courses, you know, are they truly preparing them for college?
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's no turning back.
There we
This
go.
is- This is the way it's going to be. And I think that's a great way to end our session, actually, unless there are other questions here.
Well, and Terry, I'd just like to thank everyone for their engagement. Thank you for organizing this, and David for hosting us, and Dallas for popping in. It's great to see him.
Yes, thank you, everyone. Thank you.
And it's Friday, so I hope you all have a
That's
great,
right.
great weekend. Tom, any final thoughts?
No, I just, no, just think of us, because it's freezing here and it really is sleeting and icing here. So.
And I just looked out, it's just starting to snow again for the 6th straight day.
Oh, my goodness.
So enjoy Hawaii.
We will definitely send warm wishes your way. So, you know, Rob, Terry, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time with us today. And we thank everyone for participating and your attention. So at this time, please return to the ACCE 2022 website to view our generous sponsors, including Catholic Virtual, and talk with other fellow attendees on the discussion board until the next session begins in about 20 minutes or so, I believe. 12:35 is the next session. So thank you, everyone. Have a great afternoon. God bless.
Mahalo. Mahalo.
Thanks, everyone. Mahalo.
Blessings.